The phrase, "I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy," is a very apropos. I say this all the time, like, you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to run a business and build it, be careful what you ask for, because if it is just about a financial outcome for yourself, don't even bother, because you failed before you started. You will fail. I say, like, you got to have big eyes from an ambition and a vision perspective. You got to have big shoulders because you're protecting everybody and you're bringing everybody along for the ride.
Today, we have Rich Antoniello on the podcast, who is famous for having sold complex networks for over $300 million. He was the CEO for over 20 years.
Don't forget twice, motherfucker.
Twice. First to Verizon, second to BuzzFeed. Today, he's the executive chairman at Uprock Studios, and he's also been an advisor and mentor to me, as well as an advisor to the company I created, Low Battery. And super excited to have him on the podcast today. Welcome, Rich.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So, Rich, let's take
Sorry to correct you right off the bat.
We'll be doing a lot more of that.
Yeah.
So let's take it to the beginning. I know a topic that we've talked a lot about, and I think even people on social media talk a lot about, is, are you born an entrepreneur or can you become one? And for you, you thought you were going to go the finance route.
That's right.
So I'd be very curious to hear about how, with that mindset, were you able to actually use that as a superpower for when it was actually time for you to become a CEO?
So I think this is rather interesting, because I want to take a step back and analyze this. You have to remember where I grew up. I grew up in kind of lower class Brooklyn as a neighborhood. So I wasn't exactly exposed to a lot of professionals, let alone entrepreneurs. And I do think kids need exposure. And we didn't have this, like, I couldn't go onto TikTok and see 45 people of, here's how to start your business, right? When I wanted to do research, I had to go to the library and use Encyclopedia Britannica. We didn't even have the internet. So I want to contextualize this, because I think it's important. Like, when you are not exposed or do not have contact or experience with entrepreneurs, I was lowest common denominator. I watched, it was 1987. I was 15 years old, 16 years old, and I watched Wall Street and the movie with Michael Douglas, Greed is Good.
Yeah.
And not that I fell into the greed is good thing, maybe a little bit, but I was looking at it and I was like, these guys are living a much different life than I'm living, and my parents are living. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was a UPS driver. And I was like, this to me was the path forward, because it was the only thing I'd seen of massive success. I come from a family, it's not a lot of college graduates and not a lot of professionals. So my exposure was very limited. And I knew I didn't want to live that life, and I knew I wanted to live a life of not extravagance, but I didn't want to worry about money. So for me, the path forward that I understood and that was known at that point was working for somebody or going into finance. So that was what drove that initially. And I say this a lot about being born an entrepreneur versus not. I think you have to have that. You can be a hustler. I was a hustler, but I wasn't an entrepreneur yet. You need that layer of business exposure and acumen. And that's why I'm very jealous of people who grew up in households with like business professionals and got exposure to that. That said, once you start down that road and you start meeting different people and having exposure to businesses and other things like that, I was lucky enough to do a internship at BBDO while I was in college, and fell in love with marketing. And I really realized that I didn't want to be a part of pulling companies apart or looking at employees as zeros and ones. And I was a builder. And there was the brand side and the building side and the excitement side and the creative side that I was very drawn to. So even though it wasn't as lucrative as finance, to me, it was something that was very attractive, and that's how I started my career. But I did start in the corporate world first.
That's really interesting. And we were talking about how, and I agreed on this, of how having experience in the corporate world actually helps you become an entrepreneur. It's a huge hack, because you don't have to make all those mistakes. You have the model already figured out.
Well, you don't have the model all figured out.
But
because corporations dealing with a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? So So I will say this though. I think, and I think I've told you this story. I was lucky enough. I worked at Saatchi & Saatchi, the biggest advertising agency in the world, and I worked on Procter coming out of school. So like I was so lucky. So it was like getting paid to go to grad school for all intents and purposes. Then I worked at Wenner Media for 4 years, working on Rolling Stone, Us Magazine, and Men's Journal. And then I went and launched Adventure Magazine inside of National Geographic. So I think that was, to me, and I wasn't being intentional about it. It was like, oh, let me go be an entrepreneur. But looking back on it, I realized it was the greatest thing that happened to me because I got to start something inside of a larger company with all the leverage and the brand leverage, as well as the capital. And starting something, it was like being an entrepreneur and starting something new in a larger corporation is like having training wheels on your bike. And so I was ready at the end of my 4 years at Adventure Magazine to take the training wheels off and be a real entrepreneur. So I transitioned from intrapreneur to entrepreneur. And being 30...
But that wasn't part of the plan initially.
No, absolutely not.
It just kind of unraveled that way.
So when you start getting exposed to things, again, this is all exposure and experience is going to be a consistent theme throughout this whole thing, right? I was exposed to starting something and I was realizing I'm good at creating a narrative, not just selling somebody else's narrative. And I started to get a taste and I realized that we were very successful with the launch of Adventure, but we were limited because we were also ran inside a larger company. And I didn't like the ceiling being so low, which gave me a taste and the kind of push to go, well, create something where there's no top, there's no ceiling. And, I was lucky enough to meet Mark and Seth and then Complex happened.
So it's safe to say you were able to gain all of the skills that you were able to apply on a bigger scale through that experience.
100%.
It's interesting because I mentor people. So you mentor me. I'm able to do that for younger people. And the thing I always recommend them is to work for a company that you aspire to have. My recommendation isn't to start a company.
Oh, and you're an anomaly. I've spoken to you about this. Like, you really are an anomaly. Not only your success, but for you to have the maturity and you have a rare combination of ambition and pragmatism. You have ambition on the strategic side to create something new with big eyes, but then you're like me. You're cheap as fuck, and I know, and I mean that as a compliment, right? So you're incredibly pragmatic about the way you go about execution. That took me 20 years of operating to have, and you had that organically. But that is not
live in a household with two crazy Israeli parents.
I embedded it. Israel. Do you have to say crazy Israeli?
There we go.
That is reiterating redundancy. But you understand, you are an anomaly.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And people need that experience.
I mean, and even I wouldn't have planned to get here where I'm at today. In fact, what I tell people is don't have numerous businesses at once. All I did throughout my career was have numerous businesses at once. So and even looking back, I made the way I learned was making mistakes earlier on in my career. And
very few people are afforded that opportunity.
Yeah. And my whole motto when I was younger is that, failure is okay because I learned really fast from it. And I had that mentality. But that's the huge hack is if you're able to work for a company, you don't need to make all those mistakes. Well, you can actually just learn and get paid to learn.
You get paid to learn, number one.
Just like you mentioned, it's like
to be fair, I want you to understand, and I've said this to you specifically, and the people I worked with at the companies I worked for, I learned as much of what to do as also what not to do. There were a lot of things that I was like, I do not want to do that. And I won't do it that way. I won't have that approach. And the one thing that not to conflate this whole thing, but there's one thing that you left out that you're really good at. It's not just not being afraid to fail, but then not letting a failure define you or slow you down. You didn't become less aggressive because of any failure. Most people would.
Totally.
And I will tell you, in a corporate environment, I never understood this. Yes, your batting average should be higher because you have leverage, you have brand, you have capital, you have experience, you have all these things. When something and an initiative fails at a corporation, it leaves scorched earth. Like it's like, oh, well, and they don't analyze it. Well, maybe this worked because of bad timing, or we had the wrong team, or it was slightly wrong positioning. No, it's just this whole thing is dead.
I think it has to do with exposure. Like I look back and I'm like, I had gotten my start in entrepreneurship in just chaos and a blank slate. So it's like taking risks and failure was just something I was just so used to.
That's not conditioning, by the way.
You don't think it's conditioning?
No, it's innate. Like people either are comfortable in chaos or they're not. Like I'm not saying you can't become a better entrepreneur, but you can't get comfortable with the chaos. You're either comfortable or you're not. That's who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Like the execution can improve, the thought process can improve, but not getting comfortable to be aggressive every single day.
Let's talk more about because I appreciate all the kind words I've made, but let's talk about your
I'm done
journey.
with the kind words.
So we were talking even just before this, but you have grown quite a bit from the person you were when you started Complex. You were 30 years old. You're
Don't age me.
self-admittedly aggressive and passionate today, but back when you were 30, it sounded like you're an intense guy. So I'd love to hear from you. What was Rich like at 30, the CEO of Complex, which was just a magazine at that point, versus where you are today with all the successes you had and now, father, husband, etc.?
Well, the one biggest difference is calmer, number one. And I'm not even trying to be facetious. Like, everything I was on like full crescendo 24/7, right? So it was like, if I went out, I'm like, I'm going out and I'm putting one on tonight. Like when we walk into a meeting, like we're here to make a difference and we got to go full bore. Like everything was redlined, throttled, like in my life. And I couldn't ever understand how everybody didn't look at everything exactly the same way as me. Like I was so immature, to be really frank. I had been very lucky to be very successful in my jobs previous to that. And I wasn't successful because I was politically correct or I played the right game. I just won. And I didn't understand how everybody just didn't want to win 24/7. Like that, it took me a long time.
I can relate to that.
And by the way, I haven't changed my stance on it. I've just changed the way I look at other people at this point.
So safe to say you're maybe very aggressive and maybe lack some empathy for.
It's not just empathy.
And that was something I struggled with because I had that same view. It was like, why can't you just work as hard as why can't you just fucking get it?
Well, it's really hard. Like, and I'm gonna go back. Like my father, old school immigrant, like Italian, in the army, like just like UPS guy, like just blue collar as blue collar gets, and very old school in his approach, right? So when I did and I was like pretty good athlete, pretty good, really good at school, like, and no matter what I did, he would never focus on anything I attained or accomplished. He would focus on where I needed to improve. And his approach was like, what are you, a fucking idiot? Like, I thought that was my name until I was 16 years old. And for me, it was because of his expectation level, right? And I mean, looking back now, I understand that. For a long time, I didn't, right? And unfortunately for me, I was so immature that a great deal of that approach was pervasive in me. And I would get very frustrated with people of not being aggressive. Like when I first started at Complex, we were out at our first holiday dinner. And we had a very talented staff. It was tiny. It was like, 18, 20 people. And one person who will remain nameless was on the other side of the table. And I was like, we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about where we're going to go. And I was like, let me start over there. I'm like, what do you think, our goal is at Complex. Like, who do you look at and go, oh my God, I aspire to be that? And and by the way, no shots, but they threw out like Fader. And I'm like, we're already as important as Fader. I'm like, I lost my mind at dinner. Like, lost my mind. And I was like, if you're going to set the bar this low and just fall over it, like, what the hell? Like, I can leave right the hell now, because that's not the way I play. And, the right message, the wrong delivery, right? And it took me a long time to improve the context of the way I contextualize things and communicate them, because I was a child.
Something I'm still working on to this day.
I know.
The thing is, though, is that like these, because I can relate a lot to everything you just said, but I do still think that that's what develops a chip on the shoulder too, is that like, this is not good enough. This, that's what drives you.
So my favorite, and we've talked about this, my favorite entrepreneur of all time is Jeff Bezos. I think he's a genius, right?
Yeah,
and I think, whether you read his letters to to the board and the stockholders, it's amazing. I would highly recommend that for everyone. But you know what Jeff Bezos did that is absolutely amazing? And I say this all the time. And by the way, this is not his words, it's my interpretation of his approach, is he set incredibly ambitious goals and incredibly ambitious strategy and vision, and never wavers on that, but incredibly flexible and innovative, iterative about his approach of how to attain each of those things. And that's the success of Amazon, and nobody gets it. Like, they had the biggest product failure of all time at the time, and I'm going to say it, and you're going to remember it, and then go, oh my God, I didn't even realize this. But in Q4 of one of the years, they launched the Fire Phone. It was a $2 billion loss.
Jeez.
But he had these other little things going on at the same time. AWS. Oh, this little cloud service thing. Oh, Amazon Prime, this other, like, only the greatest flywheel ever created of any business of all time. Like, Jeff Bezos, here's my vision. And you know what? Some things I'm going to do are going to fail, and some things I'm going to have to iterate. And so, like, the tactics will constantly change and hopefully constantly improve. But the vision and the strategy never changes. And that is why, to me, he's the greatest.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that. Talking about CEO and leadership and all that, I think that something that doesn't get discussed enough, especially now in today's age, it's all hustle porn, work. People don't realize that, or maybe some do, but life is a game of trade-offs. Being a CEO is that to the nth degree, because you have to be the one setting the standard, hopefully, if you're doing a good job of it. So for you, looking back, what were some of the trade-offs that you made that were just not worth it? Or what were some of the trade-offs you made and some that were just not worth it?
99% of them were not worth it.
Really?
Yeah. Like, so look, I mean, I forewent vacations, spending time with my wife, canceling vacations. If there was a problem, I felt like I needed to be there to solve it.
In the business,
right?
So you're 100%
like
all in.
Like redefining all in.
Wow.
Redefining all in. I don't like to lose, if you haven't figured that out. And because I do believe that there's no excuse to fail. Like, I think you can always, like, we're in a very ambiguous industry. Media, advertising, and marketing are ambiguous. That means, I say this all the time. I think I might have even said this to you. Like, I've chosen this sector because it's ambiguous. 95% of people look at ambiguity and go, oh my God, it's an excuse to fail. 5% look at it and go, holy shit, there's a million goddamn ways to win. And I love those 5%, and I love an industry where that 5% is maxed out. And that's why I love this sector. So my viewpoint is I only live in the 5%, or there's no excuse to fail. There's always a way to win. And that's great. But when you do not prioritize I didn't prioritize my health. It came back to bite me later on in my life. Like, I was having panic attacks and accelerated heart rates and things like that. You know, I ignored everything but the success of the business for a window. And I think I've told you this, though. Thank God, when we had kids, a lot had changed, right? And I think I've given you this speech before. And this one's worth it, because as good of a CEO as I was, and as much as I was concentrating on it, what's funny is it wasn't the volume of effort, but I found another gear when I had kids. And let me explain. When you're single or you're building your life, you're the most important person in your life. When you get married, ideally, not everybody looks at this like this, but like I was always, when got married, here's my partner. I finally had somebody for the first time in my life be as important as me to me. When you have a kid, it's the first time in your life somebody is more important than you or your spouse. And when you're about to give up, when you're about to throw your hands up, or I can't solve this problem, I'm gonna go to bed, you have another gear, because for the first time in your life, you're doing something for somebody else, not yourself. And somebody else is more important than you. And to me, that's how I found another gear. And it wasn't a volume of work, it was a level of wantedness, and it was a focus change for me that it was just seminal.
And so so you were all in on the business. Do you think that
To a fault.
do you think that you still could have gotten to the end result without making some of those trade-offs?
Unfortunately, probably not.
So looking back, like, would you have done it differently then?
I mean, what's success? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we sold for a lot of money. We didn't raise a lot of money, so this was a very good result for everybody. If we sold for half as much, it still would have been an outstanding result. If I had spent a lot more time balancing my life.
Do you think that the business was that predicated on your time, though, in the business, driving it, setting the tone? And all
There
that
were
stuff?
a couple of key inflection points that, and this is not an ego thing, it's just there's, certain things happen at certain times where if the right person's hand wasn't on the steering wheel.
What were some of those inflection points?
We can get lost on that, dude.
Let's hear it.
Well, you have to remember, we almost ran out of capital.
I imagine starting ComplexCon was a huge risk.
Well, that was later, right?
Okay.
That was later. Before that, we had this little thing called the Great Recession happen in 08, 09. And previous to that, we were an LLC inside of a larger corporate umbrella with Echo. And Echo had lost their line of credit. They gotten very aggressive in 2007, where they got into real estate and started going down like their own retail stores, and were overextended. And CIT pulled their line of credit, and all of our capital was away and gone. And I was raising capital in 2008 and 2009 under duress, with an independent magazine. Like
That was
we were
still
we were a magazine and digital, but we had not had not crossed over to usurp the magazine's revenue yet.
I mean, that's Facebook was just becoming a thing. That
Social media was nothing. Social media was one-to-one communication. It was Friendster and MySpace at that point.
So just like the .com era.
That's right. It was still .com. And we had, at the end of 06, and beginning of 07, we had launched the network of bloggers, but that was still nascent as well. And it was very effective, and it was game changing for us because it allowed us to scale in digital very quickly. But we were about to run out of capital, and trying to raise money is hard.
And you were the CEO for how long at this point?
5 years.
Okay.
Right. 6 years.
So 35, you were just having kids then at this point too.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Both my parents were sick in the hospital. My father had grade 4 bladder cancer and was in full renal failure. I'm an only child. My mom had a double aortic aneurysm surgery and had a stroke coming out of it. We had gotten married, and at different times my parents had to move in while the other was in the hospital with us. And my wife was pregnant. We had our first child in January of 08, and my wife was pregnant with our second child. And I don't know if you remember that time frame, but people were questioning if your money in the bank
Talk about a wartime CEO.
Oh, I mean, literally, That's why I laugh when people are like, what about this challenge? And I was like, listen, man, I lived through 08, 09. Let me give you my thing. Oh, and by the way, we were in the building. We lived in the building that got hit by that crane where the guy died. So we were moved. So I had to move out with my pregnant wife, my 8-month-old child, and my mother who had a stroke. And well, by the way, our business was running out of capital, and I was trying to raise capital and run a business and grow it.
But going back to the point, so the point was that like there was no way around at that point. That sprint, you needed to be all in to get out. I mean,
nobody else was going to do it.
No one else was going to do it.
Nobody else had and I didn't have the skills either. I'm just like figuring it out on the fly. Like it wasn't like back then, nobody really understood what venture capital was. I know I didn't. And I definitely didn't know how to approach it. It's not like there was enough information to go Google, like, how do you talk to a venture capitalist? No, the AI wasn't writing a business plan for you.
Are you familiar with the term Pyrrhic victory?
No, I'm not.
So it's when you sacrifice so much for a victory that a victory doesn't feel like a victory because of how much you sacrificed.
Oh, well, here's the thing.
Does that resonate with you at all?
It doesn't.
Or it
doesn't because
everything still at the end of the day, everything you didn't lose anything.
Just keeping it together, man.
You kept it together.
Just
still
keeping
married,
it together.
Still have
nothing
kids.
was like that. Look, I laugh. Like I said, you want to bring a challenge my way? Like I've been tested to a degree very few have. Like, and we won every one of those things. We didn't just get through it.
Yeah.
Like we won every one of those things. Like I'm unkillable. I am. Like, and I don't mean that from an ego perspective.
Yeah, it's just got to the mud.
Refuse to lose means something to me.
Yeah.
Everybody else, it's a thing that you put on a t-shirt. Like, sorry.
Yeah, you lived it.
That's right.
That's awesome. I think that especially for people out there, kind of answers the question in a big sense. I was going to ask later on is like, what for people out there who want to be an entrepreneur or CEO?
Don't.
Yeah.
Seriously.
If you're willing to, and well, this is what success at that scale looks like. To sell a media company for $300 million, it doesn't seem like there's any other way around it versus obviously being talented and having the skills, but just sacrificing everything.
And that's what
it's tough to have work-life balance and have an anomaly outcome.
An anomaly of anomalies.
Right? Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't, this isn't a criticism of other people. This is a warning for most people. And I mean, you're laughing. Unfortunately, I'm not being facetious.
No, I've been there and I've laughed because I have been there and I've, thanks to you, have had the knowledge to know that, for me at one point in my career is I don't want to be a CEO anymore. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not, I hear the stories. I'm like, I'm not willing to sacrifice it all.
The phrase, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy is a very apropos. It's as true as it gets.
Yeah.
People do not understand, like, I say this all the time, like, you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to run a business and build it, be careful what you ask for, because I will guarantee you this, if it is just about a financial outcome for yourself, don't even bother because you failed before you started. You will fail.
It has to be a lot more to it than that.
You got to want to bring everybody
Everything
along.
is just broken down.
Well, you got to have, I say, like, you got to have big eyes from an ambition and a vision perspective. You got to have big shoulders, figuratively. Like, yeah, I happen to have big shoulders, but you got to have big shoulders because you're protecting everybody and you're bringing everybody along for the ride. And,
to be a good leader, a lot of people forget that.
It's the hardest thing in the world.
And how about on this topic? How about for you specifically? Because obviously anyone who works with you will say, Rich is, obviously one of a kind CEO.
That's
one of a kind.
Sometimes there's a whole lot of other words that come in there, but yes.
But at the end of the day, especially working with me and someone who I look up to, you're a great leader. What personal attributes do you think that you had that allowed you to have such a successful outcome and to be such a great CEO?
I mean, I wasn't in the beginning, and I want to admit that. Like, it took me a long time. It took me a long, long time to get to the point where.
Did you have self-honesty around that, or what did people's? What kind of your feedback?
So one of my favorite phrases is intellectual honesty. And it did take me a long time because to me, when you're younger, you think anything you have to do, like the ends justify the means, right? And I definitely fell prey to that. There is no question. And then I started realizing,
So
especially
win
once
at
I
all
had
cost
kids.
mentality.
Right. When I had kids and like, that '08 time frame, you start realizing how you go about things matters as much as what you do. So what you do and accomplish, it matters as much, if not more, how you go about it. Because you could talk about all the financial success or awards or accolades. If when your kids, like when my kids met my Christian Baszler, who worked for me, my president, and he came over to our house, and they would make like, you kids make fun of you, drive you all the time, whatever. And Christian would tell stories about me or the way I approach something, and with unbelievable reverence. And when you run into somebody, or I'm not in the room, or other people, like if you did things the right way, like your kids are going to know it. And it mattered to me a lot more that my kids, I was able to look them in the eye. Like there's a lot of entrepreneurs that lied and raised a lot of money and took people's money, like flushed it. And I'm not saying there's one thing to fail, but then there's another thing to lie, right? I like to be able to look my wife and my kids in the face and tell them how it really went down and and they know what it did, and they can talk to people and like understand. That matters so much. And it's not, and also like the people that believe in
So it's really having the kids of like using that as a North Star is like, I want to be the person that my kids can, and
That's
you were using that in your day to day.
1000%. And how it translates and manifests in reality is like, you start to realize like the more, like I can ask more of people if they know that not only will I never ask them to do anything that I wouldn't be willing to do, but I am here to lead them, I am here to protect them, and I am here to support them. It's amazing how much more you can ask out of people. And
that's how you build a culture.
That's how you build a culture.
Which is the hardest thing
And
to
that
do.
took me a long time to understand.
So around the intellectual honesty, is that something that just like popped up one day, or did you have a mentor or therapist? Like because I mean, there's people, that go through life and are still completely unaware. Even leaders,
One that
treat people
not
terribly.
even, usually, especially.
Especially, a lot of the most successful, being billionaires. I know people that work with many of them, and it's almost like because I'm so successful, I have a right to treat you like shit. I pay you so much.
Well,
I can treat. So, like, what allowed you to develop that?
I mean, look, I lost my father, and then you start.
So that kind of recalibrated you to realize things that matter.
Well, you start realizing about like it's really nice to have fun at work. It's nice to like the people you work with. And what's funny is like, and I know this is going to sound really terrible of me from a business perspective, but honestly, if I don't respect someone, it's very hard for me to like them. Like, I'm not saying I can't like them outside of work, but if we work together and I don't respect you and how you go about things, I'm not saying I have to agree exactly the way on a purview or anything like that. But I realize like, if I respect people, I can really enjoy them at work. And if I can create an environment where they have the flexibility to be successful in their own light, and I take the top off of their development, their opportunities, and challenge them, but then support them to get there, there's nothing you can't do as a business. And I mean, you got to remember, this, like Complex, we've touched on it a little bit, but like over 20 years, we were about 8 different businesses.
Yeah.
We went from a magazine to a digital ad network to an owned and operated play to IP factory. We went from printed text to digital text to photos to short form video to long form video. Each one of those was a successful transition. Those were not pivots. Those were massive accretive ads to our business on a foundational basis. And we had 1,000% batting average. And you
Really?
know, what did we fail at?
Well, that was going to be my next question.
we fail at?
That's what I was going to ask you. I don't know
I'm
the
not
answer.
saying we never made any mistakes. We made tons of mistakes, but
There was no epic failure. The Jeff Bezos $2 billion phone example.
So we've tried things that didn't work, but they weren't epic failures. You know, look, I screwed up video when we first started, right? Like we had this big, powerful network, and I believed, and this was ego, right? I was younger, right? And this was like 07, 08, right? No, maybe it was later. Maybe it was like 10 or 11. And online video had started to get really popular. Like YouTube had just started to really to get traction, but it was dominated by like face to camera stuff like PewDiePie and things like that, right? Different times.
Yeah.
And I was like, we got to get on this. And then I realized that for every dollar of monetization that you sell onto YouTube, like a pre-roll, you have to give them 45%, 45 cents on the dollar from a tax perspective. And I was like, you know what? We'll create a custom player. We'll white label Ooyala, and we'll run it on our network. We have all these page views. We don't need YouTube. Boy, was I wrong. Like, if you're gonna,
So you didn't put any of your content on YouTube at all?
we did some of it. We did some of it, but I thought we could put our most premium content on our own and not have to. Like,
and that just delayed your progress long term.
it did.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, luckily I wasn't romantic about it. It was my call and it was my mistake. But because I was like sober and I realized I was wrong, we were able to correct it 6 months in. And we were still way ahead of the market from a YouTube perspective. That was a mistake, but we lost a battle, but we didn't lose the war.
Yeah.
We won the war.
Clearly, you saw that, you know, obviously you guys sold the business, but Hot Ones, which was just a pretty much
Hot Ones,
YouTube
sneaker shopping,
lived on.
burger show, pizza wars, everyday struggle.
And you were
go on and
you
on.
were able to, you know, as you said, not be romantic about it, able to realize, have the self-honesty, you know, when you made a mistake. Especially as a leader who set that direction.
So yeah, I mean, and look, and that was something I never failed to remind people of afterwards. I was like,
Sets the tone, yeah, because
well, look, it's like I was wrong. I stood up in front of everybody in all hands and go, I was wrong, and let me explain why. And this is because I always spent a lot of time with my team, not just telling them what to do or even how to do it, but why we're doing it. Because my belief is if you spend the time to explain to someone why you're doing something and what the goals and objectives are, if they come up with a better way, who the hell am I? Like, I'm not a super genius. Like, if you think you're smarter, you come up with a better way, you have a more creative way that's more efficient, faster, better, let's do it that way. Let's iterate. I don't care. But you can't, you limit magic and creativity if you just give directives. It's the worst mistake I watch
empowering
younger leaders make.
How about, I'm also curious, early on in your career, going back a little bit, I just want to see how the evolution, once again, of like Rich in the beginning to now, you know, you've had so much experience. How are you just viewing success in life at that point when you started versus today?
Come on. When you're younger, and I mean, look, it was all money.
That was it.
It was just money, man.
Yeah.
Like, power meant nothing because I didn't understand what power meant.
Just
like,
money and power.
My viewpoint was, I don't want all the responsibility. Just pay me more and let me go out the door and go get a cocktail at the end of the day, right? I'm just being honest. I'm being blatantly honest, right? And, you know, I started to I had a couple of bosses who would challenge me. Like, they, you know, there's many stories of like people telling me, you know, I was, just because I'm good at something and I didn't have to work for it, like, stop being so lazy. I had people telling me I was doing 10% of my capability, and
still having a ton of success,
like on a relative,
and having all the financial rewards and all
the
the
charts. You know, like, when you're 24, 25 years old, and I know it's going to sound, it's not that it's not going to sound like a lot of money now, but it was an insane amount of money. Like, I got, before I was 24 and a half years old, I got my first commission check. It was $188,000 So I made over to
in a what period? In one
This is
quarter.
1995.
And what was 1/4's commission?
No, that was a year.
A year.
A year.
Okay.
So I made over $250,000 before I was 25.
Which none of your friends
in
were doing.
95.
Yeah.
That's like making $1 million now.
Crazy.
Like I was so lucky.
So what was the point when you realized money is just there's so much more to success than just money?
So
Did you realize that?
well, you know what's funny is when I stopped being lazy, because I was like, all right, like I'm just a great salesperson and this is fantastic. If I made $500,000 at 24, how can I not make $1 million by the time I'm 30? And then you start to realize like, A, what real money is, number one, but two, even more so, is I was getting frustrated because I'd come up with ideas and my bosses would be like, no, we're not doing that. And I'm like, wait a second, like my idea is so much better than what we're doing here. And they're like, well, that's not your job. My job is to come up with ideas. Your job is to go sell shit that I came up with. So shut up and do your job. And I was like, I didn't like that because I was like, your idea is not as good as I think it could and should be. It's not scalable. It's not as opening up the aperture. It's not giving the brand the breadth and the respect and the premium nature that it deserves. And it's not. I wanted to be creative, and then I quickly realized I was like, I really want to build something. Like
You realize there's fulfillment part,
1,000%,
not just money.
Well, look, it's funny. I got into marketing and media and stuff like that because I fell in love with the sector of like building a brand. It's like I started at Saatchi. It was $20,000 a year.
Wow.
1993. $20,000 a year. That is like bologna and Cheerios money.
Yeah.
Like,
but grew pretty quickly to the.
well, yeah. Like, look. But what I realized, like the money was the draw, but I still liked the creativity, right? This was not an iBanking job. It wasn't working at Goldman.
Yeah.
Where I could have made that money, but they would own you, right? Here, I started to like this sector. You start to realize like you can come up with the idea, you can execute it. If you can go sell it, you can go make these things happen. And if you have this larger audience and brand, you can have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
And look, I'm a right brain, left brain guy. Like I'm very good with numbers, as you know, but like and modeling. But to me, that's my differentiator because I still think of myself as a creative first.
And that's the rare, I would say that the very rare to find, especially in a leader, someone who can have the two and
Yes.
bring that into the workforce.
I'm very lucky.
Sell and had the financial and the creative idea to bring it all together. But how about once you had all the money and you were able to remove that from the table, what was left behind that in terms of the drive? Especially that's something I struggle with, so like similar to you, is like in my, when I started at 19, money, just scarcity mindset, just getting out of the position I was in and getting rid of my biggest fear of just being mediocre. Once I was able to I accumulated enough where money is not part of the equation at all. It's something I still struggle with today is like, what's my why? And you kept going even after you sold Complex, you were still hustling after you sold
the first time or
I said the first time.
Oh,
And the second time.
Well, I was still running it as an independent asset. All we did was the first time. After the first time when we sold it to a JV of Verizon.
But you didn't take your foot off the pedal.
Absolutely not.
So why not, like how?
Well, number one, like
Well, first, how was the feeling of getting that across the finish line, even all the stresses,
I mean, look, man, like
making so many
amount
millionaires.
Well, that's the thing. Like that's the thing. It's like, look, we returned in aggregate, I think, for our original investors, Excel and Austin Ventures, in our 7 years, because we raised the money in 2009 and exited in 2016. We made those guys tech multiples. I think we returned 17x for their money, which is unheard of, right? Unheard of.
Or now media today, it's like don't invest into
right? So, that's off the charts. That was great. But what was even better was like, yes, I changed the course of my life and my family's life on a personal basis. But then also all these people that believed in me, that where I would tell them, don't worry, Like, here's my strategy, here's my vision, work tirelessly, and don't worry, I will go sell this company. Like,
You really took that upon yourself.
yeah, I did. And, it's when you're able to deliver for those people who believed in you and then change the trajectory of a lot of their lives and have their mortgages paid off and their kids' colleges paid off and changed. And look, I'm not saying all of them could not work, but it took a lot of the day-to-day stress away from a great deal of people on our cap table and our management team. And then but it's funny, and I don't know if this is the case for you, but I'm going to just walk you through me specifically. Like, I got this money and it was almost so absurd. Like, I didn't think it was real. Like, it was kind of like, okay, well, I got it, and that's great. Like, I went and bought a new apartment, I bought a beach house, I put a lot of money to work, and nothing really changed for me.
That was the moment we realized, money doesn't matter.
Well, no, it does.
No, but once you have it, you realize,
once you have enough where...
Did it make you happier?
So there's two types of happiness.
Okay.
There's elation happiness, which it did not do, but eliminating underlying stress. I've never woken up a day after that where I'm worried about what bill I have to put in front of the other. Like, I remember sitting on the dining room stairs watching my parents argue over which bill we're going to pay this month and which one we're not. I remember that will never happen to me.
Or kids, I'd imagine.
Right. Right. But I was just that was like a thing for me.
Yeah. But I'm saying when you do that, it's like a generation. That's your generation.
100%. 100%. But it's just when you can walk into something, or if God forbid something happens, and you can just take care of it. And also, not just the money, but when you get to it, you attain certain things and do certain things. You're in certain groups and you have access to certain people. And I have friends who are on the board of this hospital, and I can get to this doctor when my father-in-law had issues coming out of one of his surgeries, and somebody who would be on a 3-year waiting list otherwise. It takes away a lot. It took away from me a lot of the stress of the life that I thought I was always going to lead in lower middle class, not. And that was a big switch in my head. And I became foundationally happier.
Wow.
Again, not elated. I'm not walking around elated, but just for me, I'm always worried about everybody else, because everybody else is my responsibility. My parents were my responsibility, not just financially, but they weren't educated people. I had to handle everything for them. And, I'll just take it on. And being able to take it on where it's not something else that I could barely pay for already or barely have the skills to go do, it's a shift in your head. And it's funny, not to make a segue, but it's that success and the underlying subconscious things that came with it for me are a lot of the things that enabled me to probably make a transition more successful. And I'm not trying to, again, force a segue in the conversation. I just, I know what had happened, and that confidence level of what I know I can do. I have a great group of people that I've been exposed to throughout my career from an industry and a financial perspective where my reputation precedes me. And now if I'm not taking advantage of all of that work and that reputation, I would be not leaving money on the table, but leaving opportunity on the table. And that's what continued to drive me, probably.
So how about...
I hadn't even thought about that until I just said it, to be honest with you.
That's really interesting. So how about, you mentioned even the segue and the transition, we'll get to that later, but how did your view of success and work change after, once again, you're able to remove the money component of the why? So
again, for me, it was never about just the money. Like I told you, we had made that transition.
But I'm saying after you have money, objectively, it changes the opportunities you're willing to do. Well, there's some things you do that are, at least for me, that are just opportunities.
I'm a little bit of a sicko in certain ways, and you know this. Also, and this is the anomaly of like media, right? Complex was me and I was Complex, right? I didn't define myself exclusively by it, but it was the family and the people and the brand. There was such a sense of pride and ownership for me that like, it wasn't like mission accomplished, I'm done. It just wasn't. Not the first time. It was kind of like, that's great. You know, we exited, we made a lot of money for people. We also got a ton of infused capital because we were doing Go 90. So I was like, we have a road to transform us into this monster business. We have all this money coming in to develop premium IP. Like, this is the greatest opportunity in the world. Like, it was like, the deal was so good for us, right? Like, it just set us up for the next level. Now, unfortunately, Go 90 went away very quickly, and all of those hopes and dreams had to be completely, very, very much recalibrated very quickly, which was hard, right? And that's nobody's fault. It's just sometimes timing is bad.
Yeah.
But, you know, that was a very big motivating factor where I was like, oh my God, we're going to be able to take this business and make it 5 times as large as it is today. And we're going to put more people on. Like, that was the one thing I do want to go back to. Because of where I grew up and who I am as a person, like, I always believed in hiring the person and the talent and the potential, not the resume. And I know you've done this, like Griff is a perfect case example. Like, Adam is a non-traditional CEO. I'd say probably at one time, we had like a third of our people didn't go to college, didn't graduate college.
Wow,
oh yeah,
a third.
I mean, even a lot of some of our executive team.
Wow.
Like, you know, my viewpoint was never like, I had and I have chips on my shoulder about where I grew up and how I grew up and how my dad didn't play golf with the right, like, I didn't have any ins, zero. I had to make every opportunity myself my entire life. And I know how much that sucks, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So my viewpoint is, if I can build a business that I also ancillarily or secondarily also can bring everybody along who deserves the fucking chance and doesn't have to go through what I had to go through to get that job, I'm going to do that.
The thing is, though, it's a gift and a curse.
What?
The upbringing. You know, because you develop the chip on your shoulder. Without that, I don't even hearing you, like, why would you make those sacrifices? Right?
It's because you should.
Because you should, but you need to go above and beyond to do that, to sacrifice everything.
I don't care.
Do you think, I'm saying, but you think without that chip on your shoulder, you still would have?
Oh, absolutely not. Because I wouldn't have even like.
That's what I'm saying.
Most people I know, most of my peers, who's like, you know, daddy was like whatever.
That's what I'm saying.
They're not even aware. I'm not being critical of them. They're just not even aware.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is that being able to develop the chip on your shoulder through, call it a trauma and childhood and upbringing and all that, is what gives, at least me, and it sounds like you too, the chip on your shoulder to go all in and speak, you know, and do all these things.
So, like, I'll say it this way. I don't think, again, not to go back to what I was saying before, if you're not making it more, what did I say? If you're not making it that more about than just yourself, then honestly, you're going to fail. And to me, a success is not just a monetary success, especially on an individual basis. ROI for your investors is fantastic, and you have to do it. Otherwise, you're not going to get a second chance to do it again. All of that being said, you know, ideally, if you have a big enough vision and can bring everybody along and provide those opportunities, I don't think that that's something you should consider. I think it's something that absolutely has to be integrated and thought of no matter what you're building.
Yeah.
I like, and you can't fake that.
Yeah.
And people feel it.
Yeah, totally. How about, so you mentioned going back to what you were saying prior, I would love to hear what that identity loss was for you when you walked away from Complex. I know you even written the second time, written letters about it. You know, I've seen you post it on social media and whatnot. So obviously, you know, you put your heart and soul into something. Like you said, you are Complex. Even, you know, your Instagram's still a Rich Complex.
Well, it's too late to change now.
Exactly. Right? So talk about the identity loss. I would love to hear from you. Just what was that feeling like? Are you still grappling with that today?
First of all, it wasn't and let me go back to, I said something 2 minutes ago, like I never defined myself by the business. Like we were one and the same, but I never exclusively defined that. Like, I'm a big wine guy.
Yeah.
I like to talk about sports. I can talk about cars. I can talk about wine. I can talk about watches. Like I have a lot of interest points, right? Well beyond hip hop and sneaker. And I love those things because those were foundational things I grew up on. But the hard part for me, do you know what the hardest part was? And it's funny because I talked about some of the health issues that I was having and other things like that. Like as much as I loved and I started to sleep for the first time in 20 years, like deep sleep, not like waking up like, who did I forget? Because let me say this, and I think it's important. I say this all the time. There's a big difference between being a leader and being the leader.
Mm.
When you're a leader, you have to take responsibility and accountability, and it's great. And ideally you do, most don't, like doesn't matter. When you are the leader, when I make a mistake, I don't go to somebody else and go, can you fix it? There's nobody for me to go to fix it. But what's even worse is when I make a mistake, people lose jobs. And I affected them and their family. And if you don't realize that and it doesn't make you sleep a little lighter, you're probably not right for that job, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the funny part. Now I'm going to not contradict myself, but I enjoy having big shoulders. I enjoy taking the responsibility and bringing everybody along. It is thrilling and motivating to take a bunch of people, organize them, get behind a concept, and be successful. Like that is, I mean, there's nothing better. Like it is so energizing and so fulfilling down to a soul basis. Like, and then like looking at people you admire and respect and be like, we did this together. Like, this is amazing. I missed it. I miss being responsible and creative every day. And I write about will and determination a lot. Like, and I missed willing things to be successful. Like I really did. Like the money was great. The second, like we exited and, it was fantastic. And I got to like take a minute and take a breath. And it really was a minute and a breath for all intents and purposes. But, I jumped into activity because I missed the responsibility. And what I realized is like a whole bunch of advising and investing was none of the responsibility. So I wasn't getting anything that I needed out of it. I was helping people. I was helping leaders like talk through their problems and build better teams and come up with more focused strategies and better tactical and executional plans. And they were beneficial, but because I wasn't involved in it, it wasn't my success either. I wasn't doing it. I was like, I'm not enjoying the detachment from businesses. Irrespective, my first year I had a couple of exits and I had done very well financially. I think I made the same money I made the year before when I was working.
Wow.
But I was empty and I was not enjoying it. I wasn't enjoying, no shots to you, but I wasn't enjoying getting on the phone with CEOs and being their psychotherapist for an hour twice a month.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
You wanted to get back in the driver's seat.
Yeah. Well,
And that's where you're at today.
Or at least be closer
Yeah.
to impact and influence. I know I'm not saying I have to do the day-to-day. The last thing I want to do is get involved in HR or legal, right? Like, and no shots at HR and legal. They're wonderful people. It's just that like the sector of those conversations and the stress of the administrative BS is not what I miss. The sitting in a room, irrespective of how large the challenge is, and coming up with the right solution when you see the vision and you see the light to solve it that nobody else can, and then getting everybody to buy in and them starting to see the light as well as you get momentum, it's not much better than that.
So it wasn't just the complex that you missed. You just missed that.
Well, I missed the people, man.
I
missed it. Like, I missed that.
Part of a team.
I missed the
leading a team.
leading a team, being creative. And being creative, not just on a creative side, but being creative from a business solutions perspective, being creative on a deal and a partnership basis, being creative on a financial structure of what an exit looks like.
And I know that, all that sounds like it now manifested into what you're now doing today with Uprocks.
Well, multiple things, right? Like Uprocks, I'm the executive chair.
But you put that deal together.
I helped raise the capital, like really raise the capital. We put a very good deal structure together and a model and a plan for extracting out multiple brands from Warner Music Group of Uprocks, Hip Hop DX, and Dime, and a license because Warner is not part of Evo. So all of their they have a gigantic YouTube license of all their artists: Dua Lipa, Bruno Mars, Kodak Black, Ed Sheeran, a huge country play. Like, they have all these views and all this premium inventory that we put as part of that deal. So it was scale plus brand, very differentiated offering. And putting that together and then recalibrating the sales team and the strategy and the positioning and the packaging of the assets and making it a real business instead of a whole bunch of disparate assets inside of a larger record label was very exciting for me. Working with people I've known for a long time, and Jarrett and Chris, and again, working with my financial partner, Bill Trefethen, was amazing. And at the same time, I was launching a vertical country brand called Fort Nash, which is basically Complex for country. But instead of websites, we're focusing on social first. I'm working with Joe Tsai and Brooklyn Media Group, BSE, to launch a media property. I work with Josh Flagg and Griff O'Brien launching. We launched Estate Media, which is real estate, B2B and B2C play, and you guys.
Yeah.
So I have 5 very exciting, very complementary businesses, and I have varying degrees of involvement. But I will not get involved in anything where I don't have skin in the game. Like, if I don't have equity, I'm not getting involved in anything.
How are you seeing business or even approaching it today versus how you used to maybe a decade ago?
I used to be a white knuckler, like, where it'd be like, here's the vision, and then here's exactly how to go do it, and then be on people the minute like somebody viewed 1% off. Like, I'm like, no, get back. No. What I've realized is how effective I can be is to give the big vision of how to attack this, and how to think about it and why we're doing it, and give a direction from a plan, and then hands off and let people be very creative on an executional basis. It's very motivating for them. They start to learn the strategy side. There's an educational component, but also there's a pride thing, and there's a lack of stress on my part. So not being involved in day-to-day tactical execution alleviates a lot of stress. But, being there to support when they have strategic questions is a great combination. And it's been very effective for me.
That's awesome.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, knock wood, all 5 of those things are hardly what I would call, they're not struggling businesses. Right? We have, irrespective of the headwinds that are out there and the challenges, these are things that have had a ton of momentum. And the one commonality is very strong executional teams that are very open to being challenged very aggressively on a strategic basis. That's the qualitative side of it.
So just going back to enjoying working with the people, you're
I always got to get better. I got to get better every motherfucking day. If I can't only work with people who want to get better, I can't work. No matter how big an opportunity is, if I feel like people are just trying to like incrementally do this or looking to put one foot in front of the other, you don't need me.
Going back to, because we went all over the place a little bit. So going back to the feeling of selling Complex after the first and second time, we talked about what it solved for, which I thought was really interesting. What problems did it not solve for, and what did it shine light on that might have even created more problems? 'Cause I know I can relate to even almost accumulating more creates more problems, at least in certain aspects of my love to hear about that.
Well, there's a lot of like little things like what people. Number one, it's very funny what people don't understand. Like, not to make a quick little joke, but like, all right, we get sold for $325 million, and it's like, people who don't understand something turn around and like, I've had like family members be like, well, you could pay for all my kids' college now. I'm like, you think I made $325 million? Like, that's not the way this works. Like, let me break this down.
Straight up said that to you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Jeez.
It's
like being serious or
by the way, just wait till like you get older, having more a family and other things like that. You'd be really surprised what people expect.
And did that create any tension between family relationships?
No, I first of all, like the person I'm talking about was more tongue in cheek.
Okay.
Maybe. But my point is just there's the perception and the reality, and also like what you end up with after you pay investors and hopefully your management team and employees and everybody, and also like Uncle Sam is rather aggressive, even with cap gains and the Obamacare tax and everything else like that. So
living in
I'm hardly complaining. Like, by the way, I'm on record. Like, I am not complaining. I made more money than I ever dreamed of as a child, and I am very lucky for that. The bigger thing for me, what it didn't solve, is like I was talking about, like, I need the elation side of that happy. Like, I'm not, like, it's great that I can relax and I don't have to worry no matter what happens. Like, I can take care of my family and their lives, and we can deal with like, I can handle all that. Like, for me though, I am somebody who needs to be mentally challenged. I thirst for it. Like, I didn't realize, like, as much as I used to complain, like, oh, everything just sucks. Like, it's like, can I just have 5 minutes to like not have a problem, or somebody else? Like, every time my door, like my door is usually open, but like every time somebody would come, or like, and I'm like, here we go. Like, great, saddle up. It's because, but you know this, by the time, especially when you have like, we had at one time we had about 450, I think 458 employees was our height.
In person.
Yeah,
in person. Damn. Yeah, I never had that experience.
In
person. Whole COVID.
Oh, it's horrific. You have to remember something. I had a good layer of management. Like, I'm not saying that, like, but they understood like that. Try and solve the problem first. But you have to remember, by the time someone's walking in your office, it's because 457 people couldn't solve the problem, right? And by the way, someone's walking in your office at minimum once an hour every day, every hour of every day, all week, all year. So think about your to-do list. Your to-do list goes out the window. You just are a gigantic strategic firefighter 24/7 when you have a company that big. And you're still trying to hold yourself accountable to the long-term vision, not just getting through the day and getting over the hump and trying to solve problems for everybody else that nobody else could solve. And as much as I just laid that out, I loved it. Like, I looking back on it,
looking back,
I loved it. Like, I didn't realize how enjoyable it is foundationally for me. Not while you're in it, it's like your childhood, right?
Yeah.
Like, or a relationship.
Yeah.
And the good ones, you look back and you think of.
It's the entrepreneurial journey. It's you get to the top of the hill, you look back and like, wow, I wish I enjoyed those moments.
God, I wish I did.
I wish I didn't have that mindset like you said, another one,
Right.
Imagine how amazing that would be if you're able to be in the moment and be like, awesome, let's fucking
bring it on. Let's bring
it on.
And I mean, I'm not saying that was never the case,
but still, it's hard when you're in the shit to have that mindset.
Nowhere near to the degree that I should have relished it much more than I did. Like, that's, and again, some of that's age, experience, exposure, growth, and also you realize, God, I mean, who doesn't realize this personally or professionally? The things that you think are the biggest mountain you're ever going to have to climb in your life are usually molehills. Like looking back, like shit that I thought was insurmountable in 2008, like are stuff that I barely would, like I'd be like, here's how you doing it. This is ridiculous. Like, what are you kidding?
And you only get that from experience.
And you only, and
it's like the stock market. You zoom out.
That's right.
And like even like the Amazon example, like Amazon has declined. I think that it's declined 80% or more 12 times.
That's right.
I've
been along for those rides.
Come on, really? Wow.
I was a day one Amazon investor.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, lucky man. But when you zoom out, you don't. They're not even blips. You can't even see them.
That's right.
And when you're in the moment, it's like all hell is breaking loose every time.
Well,
if you can have that perspective on life, it really grounds you.
And this is where the one thing I would tell everybody, and by the way, not just for the entrepreneur or the leader, like I really wish people understood what it's like working for us with us in a startup. Like, I really think we have done the last two generations no favors. Because what we try and do, what leaders, I've watched a lot of people try and do is be like, I'm going to absorb this and be an umbrella. And it's great. And I made these mistakes too. But it's not good to not share. Like, and I'm not saying like they need to know every single second of the balance sheet and how the cash crunch and that level of stress. But also don't give kids pillows and blankies and then tell them like, you don't really know what it's like. Like you got to be fair.
Yeah.
You got to share the information, enough information, and share the responsibility and accountability. And like it is not like a regular job.
Yeah.
People who work at startups and walk out the door before 6 p.m. I got news for you. Don't work at a startup.
Yeah, 100%. People get that wrong all the time. How about bringing that mentality into the home? Are your daughters going to be entrepreneurs? The entrepreneur, the coach of entrepreneurs.
So it's very funny. I have one and one.
Okay. Right? You have one that's going to be in college or in college?
No. So right now they're juniors and sophomore. A junior, and I have two daughters, a junior and a sophomore in high school. So the junior, and I hope it's her dream. I think it is. But she has started to get, like a year and a half, 2 years ago, started to get very interested in business, and very interested in entrepreneur angle of business specifically. I truly do hope it's not just because of me, I don't think it is, and it's good for her because she's very intelligent, but she's very driven, and she holds herself. She has my disease for sure. Like I hold people to a pretty high level of standard. Here's where I hold myself, right? And she does the same to a fault, and it's not good. It's not healthy. Like for a girl just turned 17 years old to hold herself to that level of accountability is, I wish she'd give herself more leeway.
How about for kids in high school? Like, are you seeing them use AI at this point, creating new businesses? I'm seeing like high schooler, there's a high schooler I see on social media has a tech business doing 30 million ARR.
So that's insane, by the way. Like,
so like, I mean, the exposure to launch businesses now is nothing.
So
with online,
and it's not just the exposure, the barrier to entry.
That's the barrier to entry
is unfucking believable.
There's no,
which is both good and bad.
Yeah,
right? Like people don't understand.
Well, for young people to get in now.
Even myself. Yeah, but for young people, I mean, what scares me about this is I don't think they're going to have a choice. Like like the amount of corporate jobs that are going to be available are going to be a lot less than they are today.
Wow.
And most of these kids can't get jobs today. So they're going to have no choice. Thank God they have the barrier to entry on the other side.
That's what themselves. They're saying. Yeah, with AI, the jobs are going away. It's it's crazy to think about.
Let's dig in on that a little bit, right? Like, and I'm not going to try and get societal or super political here, because really I loathe both parties. So like, I'm not going to go down that road. But people this is another one of these be careful what you ask for type of situations. Like, it's fantastic to have that low barrier to entry, but you asked about most of these kids and you went right to one case study. Like, that kid is an anomaly of anomaly of anomaly of anomalies, right? And unfortunately, we don't arm our kids and we don't challenge our kids. We challenge our kids with a ton of work. Like, I watch high schools, the amount of work, the expectations, like what they're teaching these kids, like, 20, you can come out of high school and have 25 to 27 AP classes already. Like, that's bananas considering like 35 years ago for me, like, we took a couple of AP classes. Like, these kids it's banana, like they're, junior and senior year is mostly college classes at this point for all intents and purposes, right? Which, by the way, is way too early. And then we ask them to take these tracks and then they go like, oh my God, look at the pressure to get into college. And like we ask them to be adults. And then at the same time, they're not allowed out. They, don't talk to strangers, don't do this, don't grow up. And like they've been helicoptered parents on the lifestyle side, yet insane pressure from an intellectual perspective, which is, by the way, a terrible dichotomy, right? Like, it's atrocious. And then even more, you add in AI in this whole thing, and you're going to see the income disparity and the societal disparity get worse, because the people who adopt this and can do it very, very, you have to be a self-starter.
Sorry, are you advising your daughters to start learning AI?
Both of them have I've been very big on AI for a long time, so they have both been using it a great deal. Now they use it in a very specific way, because and by the way, for better or worse, this is the way I look at AI. The best use of AI is, so if the arc of a use is of a creation of something, a business, an idea, an essay, whatever, is a football field, right? There's 100 yards. To me, the first 10 to 15 yards are all the person. Those are not just the prompts, but the creative ideas foundationally. It's the manual aspect. Then the next 70 to 80 yards in the middle is the AI. And then the last 10 to 15 yards is, again, the manual, the editing.
I like that. That's a good analogy.
That's the way I think you need to think. No, that's totally the way they have used it. They use it as an effectiveness, as an efficiency tool to do the manual stuff, right? Like, I won't let them use it for things that they don't understand foundationally yet, because I don't mind you using an efficiency tool once you understand the blocking and tackling. But if you're not a good writer, then you can't use it to like learn how to write.
How are you seeing at least the mindset shift from like you being an entrepreneur to your daughter versus like, you started, I started the same way of just like a scarcity, wanting to get out, wanting to escape. I don't want
Well, she has the opposite problem.
That's what I'm saying. So like, how do you still instill a lot of the values that you just...
So we make a little bit of a joke, but like, look, to be fair, my kids have, like, I give them a lot of credit. And
like, this is something I think about a lot, because it's like
my thank God,
my kids, yeah.
No, but thank God I'm very lucky. My wife I'm very old school because of how I grew up. Like I told you, I thought my name was, what are you, an idiot? Like, until I was 16. I cleaned it up. I changed the word. He used the R word instead. But I literally thought that was my name, right? And my wife grew up very old school as well. So we have we're in line in the way we think about things. We don't do a lot of gifts. We don't do like big ostentatious Christmas presents and birthdays and everything's an experience, right? Because we don't, like, there's no barrier to entry to buy something. So if my kids need something, you get it. Like, it's like, and also, like, to me, you should never have a celebration tied to a material good. Like, sorry, it's a philosophical thing on my part, but I really like, that's why we go away for once I lost both my parents, I really like traveling for the holidays. For Christmas, I don't really like being home. Like, I want to be someplace else and very festive and other things like that. So we travel for our thing, like, whether it's the kid's 10th birthday. Where do you want to go? I want to go swim with the dolphins. You know what? Like, let's go do that instead of I want an iPad, like whatever, right? So everything's an experience. Like my daughter, my younger daughter is going to turn 16 in September. And I was like, what do you want for your birthday? And she's like, I found this immersion program that I want to go to. She's very good with languages. My younger daughter is brilliant, like wicked fucking smart. Emma's very smart. Lauren is wicked smart. And she's like, I want to go to France on my own for a month with this group, and I get immersed in every week is in a different area. She's 15.
That's crazy.
Like I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, it's not even on the radar.
All this research, and they were like, all right, this is what I want to go do. And I'm like,
that's awesome.
I'm like, amazing. Like mission accomplished. Like, right? Now if I can get her motivated, that'd be a difference. Like she's like her mother. Like everything has to be like, you have to do the backdoor conversation. If you have a direct conversation, try and say like, here's what you should do. You're going to get the exact opposite response, right? But with both of the kids, like, I think it's really important. You know, we make jokes. It's like when the kids are like, well, we can afford that. Like they don't say it often, but when it slips out, like my wife usually beats me to it. She's like, yeah. We can afford it because it's our money. It's not your money. Like it's our money, and don't expect like it is. So both of my kids have been working. They go out. We go out. We have a beach house out in the North Fork of Long Island, and there's a horse farm there. So instead of the summers where they would just go lay by a pool or jump in the jacuzzi or like, you know, in BR, what they are work at a horse farm. They shovel shit, clean horses, and they've been like, I think each of them have made like, you know, I think between 8 and like 11 grand or something like that, or all these summers with, you know, like, and they're hustlers, and I love it.
It's hard to have it. I always imagine, but like, yeah, it's hard to once you have the money part, you know, hard to instill those values.
You have to have a partner that agrees with you. You have to have a partner who is willing to support that and be consistent. And then you have to like walk the walk too. Like it's not like
same as a company.
Well, right. You can't exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, like, you can't just be like, I'm not an ostentatious guy. Like, don't get me wrong. You know, I like my wine.
I'm about to say, if only they do the prices on the,
that's the beautiful part. It's very, you know, like someone has to do their research, right? But even like my watch, I tend to like things that are not like a little off the beaten path, right? A little different, like welcome to New York, by the way. I love that. It's making me flash back to Brooklyn, and 86th Street. But with the kids, they are who they are. And now you got to remember there's part of your genetics, but it's that conditioning, right? Like I will really tell someone, like the earlier you set a precedent away from material things, no matter how you want to do it, you don't have to do it exactly the same way we did. Like, and towards experiences. And again, it doesn't have to be long travel or other things like that, but like going to other neighborhoods and seeing the way other people, like I still take my kids home to like Brooklyn because I want them to see, like, look at where you live and look at the beach house and then look at this. Like, this is where I grew up. Like, and they're like, you know, how did you do that? Like, you know, it's a different world.
Yeah, didn't have a beach house growing up.
A beach house. My summer vacation with my father, threw a blue ball, like, you know, like a handball.
Yeah.
Threw it at my head and get the fuck out of my house. That's my summer vacation.
Yeah.
Figure it out, man.
Yeah. That's amazing. So talking about being a father as well, we've been speaking about business almost the entire time and your role as complex and a leader. But I would love to know, how would you do, and we mentioned a little bit about, you know, you're passionate about wine. Who is Rich as a person outside of work? Because I think that's the one thing that's really interesting, is that you have so many passions you've developed.
Really, you think? I don't know.
Or you have a few. Sorry, you have a few things that you're very passionate about.
Yes.
How did you? Well, first off, just answer that question. And how did you develop those, and continue to evolve those?
You know what's interesting, and it's something I hadn't even thought of, like where they came from. But you know, I definitely, like I said, growing up where I grew up, I wasn't exposed like we had like, when we had wine in the house, it was like Riuniti or like Gallo in the jugs and shit like that, right?
I'm impressed you remember.
Oof, dude, it was terrible. I mean, it was like drinking sugar water.
Yeah.
I mean, atrocious, right?
What is it about wine for you that you're so passionate about?
In the beginning, it was my first rep lunch where I was at Saatchi and Saatchi, and I got taken out, like, you entertain clients. Like, I didn't know that was part of the deal, right? Like, and we went to Il Molino when Il Molino was like the restaurant in New York City, right? And it was the first rep lunch I ever went on. And they came in the tableside veal Milanese, right? Which I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is insane. Like, this is not the way, like, I grew up, like, we went out to dinner maybe once, if not twice a year. And if we went out, my father would usually make us go to Beefsteak Charlie because it was all you can eat shrimp. And by the way, that was like going to what his view was like the best steakhouse in the world.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's all relative, right?
Yeah, totally.
We're at this place. They're doing the tableside veal Milanese, and the guy had been like, "Oh, I had them open a Barolo," and I was like, "Yeah, I don't really like wine," and it was because what I was drinking was Gallo and crap like that, and I was like, "Oh, I don't want like." And he's like, "No." He goes, "You're gonna like this." He goes, "You're gonna want this." And it was like a Gaia Barolo from 1980. It was like a 10-year-old Gaia. Still
Wow,
too young.
had that much of an impact
It was
on you.
still, I remember
bottle.
it because I was like, it was my first time in like that type of experience. And open it up and, like I'm having this and it's paired perfectly with the veal and the crispy Parmesan and the ice cold tomatoes and onion and aged balsamic. And I'm like, I'm like, what have I been missing? Like, oh my God, having like overcooked pork chops and rice-a-roni is not like the way I really want to like live. And I got obsessed. Like I would make people like all my rep dinners and things like that. I would always try and do dinners. And then I wanted them to take me to like Le Côte Basque and China Grill. And like, these were all the restaurants from the 90s, right? And I was like, and Odeon, and I'm like, I want to go, and I want to go places with wine lists, and I want to experience as much of this as possible. Because to me, I didn't have the money yet because I was only making $20,000 a year to travel. So for me, that was opening up the world.
Wow.
Right? Like that was like, and I got obsessed with French wine and Italian wine and learning. And I was like, and also it was something about exposing myself to a different tier and class, at least perception-wise for me.
Yeah.
Where, I had gotten my first commission check and I knew I was getting a big check. So I was like, I'm going to go bring a really nice bottle of wine home. And I had bought a bottle of Opus One home for Thanksgiving. And this is to tell you the story. I go home to Brooklyn and I went upstairs and I had opened the bottle to not like we had a decanter, but I opened the bottle to get some air in it. And I'm showering and I come downstairs and I see my father with a big, tall, like water glass with ice, and it's purple and pink. And I'm like, Dad, what is that? And he goes, I tried your shitbag wine. He goes, so much better this way. And I was like, I go, Dad, and by the way, it was like a $200 bottle of wine then.
Okay.
Which again, this is 1995. And I was like, Dad, like, that's like a $50 glass of wine. And he goes, I don't know what the hell you people think, like with this taste. He goes, this is crap. And I was like, all right, Dad. I'm like, sorry. Then I've learned my lesson. I'm not going to try and like level like anything up at home. Like, it's just not worth the fight.
But now you're doing, enjoy having wine to get people together. And I think
that's what it's all about for me.
That's what it's all about.
So it's amazing to celebrate. My wife is a big wine fan. It's amazing to celebrate and have, open up a fabulous bottle of Petrus or Latoche, or, on our anniversary, we tend to open up like a Reyes, Chateau Reyes, or Margaux or a Lafite or a Mouton or whatever. And to be able to enjoy that nuance and not to do it for anybody else. Like, it's not like, and I'm not name dropping. I'm just trying to give you like a category of product, of class that is, there's a reason I almost didn't name any Napa cabs. Like this is, it's just the nuance and the real experience of those wines. And I love Napa, don't get me wrong, I do, but like it's different, right? And, to be able to do that and have that and have a special experience and, I love it. Like I love it because, and then even better is like, I do these wine dinners in groups where I have like, 10 or 12 really smart people come and, it's like, all right, let's do a vertical of 2006 Lacoya Mount Veeder. Let's do, Promontory first year, 2008. Like I had a case of it. Let's go have fun and go bananas. And, it's not, again, it's not about the wine as much as, you're bringing people along. Like I want someone to, I want to expose a new generation of people the way I was exposed.
Like you had that experience, you had that experience.
I care about that.
That's awesome.
And especially people you like and respect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think when you were at I think we ripped through like 4 or 5 bottles of wine.
Didn't
we were at we were drinking a lot of wine.
Yeah. I went home. It was still the afternoon. I was like, oh my God.
We were drinking a lot of nice shit too. Like, and it's it's fun.
Yeah.
And it's not showy. It's not like we didn't put it up on TikTok or Instagram. It was just me and you. But, there's fun because I believe the same way there's nuance in food or watches or wine or cars, like there's a correlate to have with an intelligent person about details and nuance.
Mm-hmm.
And I like having that. Like it's fun for me.
Yeah. No, that's awesome to hear about that and your experience and something that a lot of people I think don't understand. Like, oh, it's just wine collecting, wine drink. It's a shared experience.
It is.
And that's the thing.
Especially on fam too.
Yeah.
Watching my daughters like.
Oh, really? They're getting into it? Damn. Yeah. They're starting high. Well,
that's a real fucking problem. Like,
for their boyfriends, I feel better.
Your husbands are screwed.
Yeah. Yeah, they have an expensive taste. But starting to wrap things up, but I would love to hear from you for someone who seemingly has it all. You have an amazing family. You have things that you're passionate about. You're still friends with your college buddies you were telling me about. You've obviously had incredible wins in business for you and everyone around. What is your why today? Like when you check so many boxes, like what gets you excited?
Okay, this is going to be tough for you because you're still young. Like the leeway that all of those things do, that the give to be able to think about helping other people as a real priority. And it's not just the ability to do it, but the ability to make it that big of a percentage of focus is a great gift. You don't realize
paying it forward.
Paying it forward, like
that's your biggest source of fulfillment.
It is amazing, and like being able to do it not to the detriment of my life, my family, or anything. Where previously that was not the case. That's what I like. For me, it's that like the financial freedom came first. And then what am I going to do with that financial freedom? What am I going to do with the success? What am I going to do with the connections? What am I going to do with the foundational knowledge and expansion? Like, well, okay, let's package that all together and find the people that, first of all, like, look, and I'm not trying to like take shots at people, but like, I'm not doing it. I'm not going and becoming an adjunct professor at Stanford and helping all these fucks who like will get all the help in the goddamn world to begin with. I'm trying to find the diamonds in the rough and the people that do it the right way and care and that everybody else ignores. And, there's something really satisfying about that as well.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I can
but to definitely be able to do that.
It's a gift. You've afforded yourself that space. How about for you? Were there any people that you had mentors or advisors that were able to really level you up?
Unfortunately, like, I don't know whether it was my fault. It was also a different time. Like, you weren't. If you were trying to, like, say you raised money from venture and you went into a board meeting or called your VC. and be like, I'm having mental problems. I'm like exhausted. They'd be like, oh, don't worry about it. And then they would be calling going, we need to replace the CEO.
Jeez.
Dude, this is a new phenomenon.
Yeah.
Like, also, like when you asked for help, it was weakness back in the day. Like, not, it's healthy to do that and and look, maybe that was a little pervasive because of the way I grew up and with my father and other things like that. Like, for me, he was like, figure it the fuck out, man. Like, it's on you. And I wasn't good at asking for help. I really wasn't. And also it wasn't as pervasive and it wasn't accepted, and people didn't go out of their way to mentor people either. Like, it was a different time and a different space. So like for me, and again, I'm not pointing fingers or saying it's anybody else's fault. I'm taking a great deal of the onus upon myself, but I didn't really have anybody like that. I had people who gave me opportunities, but I didn't ask for a lot of support.
So I'm really curious because you even mentioned to me in the past, I think you said you don't do therapy.
No.
So how did you develop such introspection and self-honesty without having advisors, therapy? Like, how did it just happened, or what was your process for going through that?
I mean, I hate to say it, but if you are a really highly analytical person on an external basis, I don't see how you can, and you hold yourself accountable. How can you not be intellectually honest and evaluate yourself the same way? I don't see how that's possible.
Really? I don't know. I think that when you focusing so much on the external, there's just no need to go internally because society and friends and everything is kind of like falling to your whim, So it's like, unless there's like a traumatic event from my experience, there's just no need to realign, maybe it could,
So let me say something. And we follow each other on social.
Yeah.
Like, there's I don't look, I do a lot of podcasts and a lot of conversations and whatever. And I'm like, I have no problems being on video. I've chosen not to put myself out there from a video perspective consistently because I don't want to make what I put out to help people and help people think about me. I'm deliberate about that. It's writing. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm too lazy to do edits or video. Honestly, I don't want to do face to camera fucking self-help, like these, pseudo guru Svengali bullshit. Like, I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it with a passion. And look, I'd probably get a lot more views or be a lot more popular. Like, if I played to the
So you're saying that writing has been
write and I
you
put it in words, and very rarely do I write it from first person also, if you haven't realized. Like, I make it very general because what I'm trying to do is help people think and learn to think and take a contrarian point and be more analytical and be more intellectually honest. And I think if you deliver it from an individual's perspective, it can be more about the individual and their delivery than the actual specificity of what it is. And that's why I like writing.
So the answer, so it's really been writing has been a huge way you've been able to have this introspection.
And I love it. Like, I try and put out at least 2 or 3 thought starters, differentiated statements a day.
Wow. That's a lot.
I try to.
And that's
like,
your essential.
Even if it's little things. Like,
yeah. And that's therapeutic for you.
It is massively therapeutic.
And you're able to impact others with your thoughts.
Hopefully.
That's the goal.
Look, I'm not packaging it in the popular way. But you know what? I'm not trying to be relevant to everybody.
Yeah. How about for the next? You mentioned the generation coming up. I would love to hear, especially you obviously discussed so much. What would be something that you would tell an entrepreneur getting in, a young entrepreneur getting into it today? A piece of advice.
Holy crap!
Where do you start? Yeah.
I mean, it's so like I'm not going to try and not answer your question, but like it's so dependent upon sector. You know what? Let me say it this way. Be very careful how much money you raise and from who. And I think people don't understand how seminal that is in defining success, support, what actual success means on an ROI basis, maintaining control, not just in your vision, but the way to execute that vision. Governance, it has a ripple effect on all of that.
Did you have any bad experiences with that?
No, I was
Raising-
very lucky. Like I was really lucky. Like Excel and AV were tremendous. You know, but everybody I've spoken to, we're the aberration.
What are some of the horrors of like, well, you know, for you to say be wary? What should people be wary
losing
of?
control of your company, losing control of the direction, losing control of, you know, like giving away too much of your cap table. People thinking, you know, like there is a huge issue in the marketplace that people think a raise is the reason for a parade. A raise is a means to an end to execute your vision. There is nothing to celebrate from a raise. Nothing. Because all you've done is take on more risk.
Yeah. And
people
dilute
don't
yourself.
understand that.
Now you have less equity.
And people don't, that's right.
Yeah.
And people
you
don't
can make more
understand
money raising way less and selling for way less.
And we raised infinitesimally less than everybody else, right? Like we built all of Complex on $31.5 million. Just to give you, for instance, like Vice raised 1.7 billion. 1.7 billion and went bankrupt.
It's crazy.
We raised $31.5 million over multiple rounds and exited for over 300 million.
So where do you, besides the component of raising money, and I'm happy you talked about that because I tell everyone,
do as much as you absolutely can to the point of pain before you raise capital.
And it's celebrated so much in, you know, the entrepreneurial world. A lot of people are measured on the articles at Forbes. You get the Forbes article. Oh, this person, you know, we raised 50 million.
That's all purchased anyway, but we can have a conversation about that.
How about other things that you think that just like people just get wrong running?
So the difference between an idea that is truly fundable versus, you know, a feature like, or like a derivative idea and things like that. Like, do your homework on the front side. Like, do you have a truly big, scalable idea? Or is this something that should be done, you know, on the weekends in the beginning? Or like, oh, you know what, I'm going to take 30 grand and really go at it. But like, I got to see if it's there. Like the reality is, I hate the fact that we have conditioned people that you have to create a unicorn. Like this $1 billion shit is bananas to me.
Yeah.
Like
that's
you know
the
how often
of success.
Like there's a lot of home runs in baseball, right? And
yeah.
Make torpedoed bat joke and all this crap, but very rarely is somebody hit a grand slam. A unicorn is like hitting 2 grand slams in the same inning.
Yeah.
Right? Like people don't understand. It's like those are so rare. And you're like, that would be like, I was a decent baseball player. Like that would be like me going, you know what? I'm going to go raise some capital now against me on my future earnings because I'm going to make MLB. I had no chance to ever make Major League Baseball.
I think it's such an important message because I think some people say that, but from you know, you've raised money, you've sold company for so much. Not everyone needs to measure themselves by that.
Since when is having a double, which by the way, like if it's on a correlated basis proportionate to $1 billion, like selling a company a double for $500 million, like think about that. Like, you know how rare that is?
Yeah.
But how much more realistic that is from an outcome perspective? Like this is just, everything is just batting average, right? Like I'm a likelihood guy. Like I like, you know, give me an idea that's 60% as good, that is organically differentiated in the marketplace and can be controllably executed at close to 100%, then 100% idea that is like requires marketplace education, consumer education. Oh my God, like we have to like realize, like tell people, you know, we have to educate them on the sector before we even do our own individual. Do you know the likelihood of success of a business like that? Now, look, those are the ones that if you get it right, they're worth billions and billions of dollars. But those are...
And some of them are worth billions and still end up being worth zero, like the Vice example.
1,000.
So the risk is just, you know...
And be sober about what you're good at.
Yeah.
Like we were talking before, like, you're a 0 to 20 guy and you're outstanding at it, right? Is it worth, it would be ego on your part to go, well, I'm going to take the next business, I'm going to build it from 0 to 20 million, but I'm going to take it from 20 to 300. The likelihood of you being good at that and creating a value rather than starting 2 more 0 to 20 businesses.
Yeah.
You're
that's
going to let
what I'm
ego,
doing now.
you're going to let ego define that?
That was a huge part that allowed me to have that realization. That's why, I'm back to the 0 side, starting a new business. But it goes back to the self-honesty. I think a lot of people just need to work on that. So to wrap it up, this one question, this is a really interesting one for me. If the 30-year-old version of you just starting out Complex were to see where you're at today, sitting here, what would he be most surprised to learn or to find out on the man that you become?
More personal?
Yeah.
Oh, from a more personal perspective. I will tell you, I think just because the things I cared about and the way I cared about them and being as optic driven as I was at the time, what I derive pleasure from now, I could have never seen at 30. No way. Like, I was so driven for success. The last thing I could think about would be like, I can't wait to get to the other side of the mountain. Like my 30-year-old would be like, I can't wait to get to the other side of the mountain to drive in a Ferrari F12. Like at 53, turning 54 this summer, and be like, I can't wait to get to the other mountain so I can bring everybody else to the other side of the mountain.
Wow.
Like that is a chasm, a massive chasm between the two.
Wow.
And I could have never seen that or foreseen that at all.
No, that's power. And then it just makes sense now why, you get so much fulfillment out of advisory and mentorship and paying it forward. It's all about bringing everyone else up. I think that's a common theme.
And I'll tell you this
being
too,
a CEO.
When you do a good job and people understand that and really respect you for it and know it, when I say something, it's not nobody misinterprets it of like, well, that's your agenda, your opinion. They know I don't come at it from that perspective. And it makes my communication that much more effective because of the precedent I've set as well.
That's really interesting. But
about it with just in our conversations.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like, I mean, not once have you ever had to say to me like, well, that's because that's what you think. That's not no. Like, I'm not taking anything that I've ever done personally and extrapolating it out onto you. I'm being as clinical as I possibly can about the situation and as objective as absolutely I can, but as impactful I can from the advice that I try to give.
Versus you think maybe when you were 30, you would have tried to just be the smartest person in the room.
Not just the smartest person in the room. Like, I was stupid enough to think no matter what I said, it was the smartest. It was the best thing.
So and if you don't do this, you're an idiot. You're an idiot.
Right. 1000%.
Yeah. No, that's such a dramatic.
The hubris is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Especially when you are
and that's what
testosterone-filled 30-year-old.
I think that's what being a true leader is all about.
Well, you learn.
Yeah.
You learn. Hopefully you learn.
Yeah.
Right? You keep the edge and soften the communication.
Yeah. Well, I hope to be able to get to that same page one day. But no, this was an awesome conversation. I learned a ton, even though we've had so many conversations. Continue to learn from you. I know that, just like you said, you're posting a lot about your wisdom and experiences and all that on social media. So we'll give you time to say if people want to follow you.
Yeah, I mean, the best places for me are X, and it's just at Rich Antoniello. And LinkedIn is also fantastic. What I like about LinkedIn is I'm not limited, right? So I can write longer thought pieces and things like that. So I try and do at least one longer piece a week on LinkedIn.
That's awesome. Well, cool. This was an amazing conversation. I hope to hear that a lot of people got value out of it and impacted some people out there. And now let's go drink some wine.
Outstanding.